Hi. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards, and I'm Chairman of the Central and South Planning Committee. Very warm welcome to members of the public here, and also anybody who may be following us on YouTube. The meeting is captured using wonderful modern technology and up in the cloud forever. Camera's facing this way so you can relax. You're not on it unless you come forward to speak as a petitioner. Okay. Let me just go through the normal preliminaries. First of all, mobile phones, most important. If I can invite everybody to please make sure they're turned off. Secondly, fire alarm. If one goes, we're not expecting it, so we will evacuate. The way out is the way you came in, but then straight on and down the stairs. Don't worry, we will go with you. And if those doors are blocked for whatever reason, there are emergency exits behind us, so don't worry about that. Feedback forms, residents and anybody who's following online, you're invited to complete the feedback forms on how we may improve these meetings. No obligation to do so, and whatever you say doesn't come back to me, it goes to Democratic Services, so you can be very frank and honest in your feedback. I'll talk a little bit about how the meeting is run and who we all are, because there's a lot of people in the room. The planning committee is made up of voting members, are all councillors, and I'll introduce them to you. On my far left-hand side, Councillor Dillon, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Borough. My far right-hand side, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Tutwell, Councillor Ahmed Wallana, Councillor Chamdal, and Councillor Yarrow. As I say, they are the voting members. As chair, I will only vote should there be a tied vote, and that very rarely happens. Other people around the table, these are officers of the council and are here to assist the committee in decision making. On our far side, Glenn Egan is our legal advisor, Anisha Teji, Democratic Services clerk to the meeting, James Rogers, head of planning, Meg Harani is a lead planning officer and will present each of the applications tonight, and Ahmed Akram is our highways engineer and gives us expert advice on highways. The papers have all been circulated. We've all read them. As I say, we will get a presentation on them, but not everything that's within the papers may get mentioned. You know, these are just succinct presentations to ensure that we all understand the overview of it all, but the papers have been circulated. Very little bit about the way the meeting goes. Although we're meeting in public, it isn't a public meeting, so there are no general speaking rights. The only people that can speak are petitioners and their agents in response. We have a petition tonight, so the petitioner will be able to speak. A ward councillor can also speak if they wish, and nobody has indicated their desire to do so, and the agent will have the right of response as well. The meeting is going to be in two parts, and we'll dance through that bit in the agenda. Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 is the bit that we're holding now. It's in public, and matter of public record, people can come and watch, and they can, as I say, follow us on YouTube. Part 2 is in private. We break the YouTube link, and we have to ask members of the public to leave, because that is the time we begin to discuss enforcement matters and matters that could end up before court, and they are not discussed in public. However, the item and the decision of the committee are published. And as I say, there are Part 1 and Part 2, but you're probably not interested in Part 2 anyway. So that is a long introduction to the meeting, and we will very, very quickly go through some formal process with regards to the agenda before we get into the meeting. So if you would just bear with us for a couple of minutes. Number 1, apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor Brightman with Councillor Tuckwell substituting.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. Declarations of interest matters coming before the committee this evening. Councillor Ahmed Wallana.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to declare non-pecuniary interest in agenda item number 11. There was no involvement, but was discussed with me, so I will be leaving the room.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Chairman. Item number 960 Carfax Road. I have had some involvement in that, so I'll be leaving the room.
Thank you very, very much as well on that one. Any others? No. Okay. Sign and receive the minutes of the meeting, which is in your pack, the 9th of October. Are those agreed, colleagues? Okay. Item 4. No matters have been notified as in advance or urgent. Item 5. To confirm there is a Part 1 and a Part 2. Item 6. We're now into the actual applications. Okay. Mr. Harani. 98 Pol Hill Road.
Thank you, Chairman. 98 Pol Hill Road is a two-storey detached dwelling located on the east side of Pol Hill Road. The application before you is for the conversion and extension of what is an existing garage to form an annex to the dwelling. In terms of the size of the existing garage, that is a standard double garage, as you can see on the top there. And then the proposal is to increase the size of that garage and put a pitch roof on it to provide an annex in that form. It is divided into 4 separate rooms, as you can see, a separate bedroom, living room, kitchen and bathroom. And your officers consider that both in terms of its overall size and scale, its height will be over 4 metres, and in terms of its use, the application is unacceptable. Whilst an annex may be considered an ancillary use to the dwelling, in your officer's view, this is designed as a separate dwelling with all the amenities that such a dwelling provides in terms of bedroom, kitchen, living room, and a separate access via the rear access road that's there at the moment, which serves other dwellings. So for 2 reasons, the application is recommended for refusal. The third reason relates to the parking area that's being proposed, and if I can go to the plan which shows that. To access that parking area, you would need to use land that is not in the ownership of the applicant, and therefore the reason for refusal relates to the access not being, or the parking spaces not being able to be accessed. So for those 3 reasons, the application is recommended for refusal. If I can just show you the photographs. As you can see, that's the above. The top plan shows the existing, the bottom plan the proposed. In terms of its size and height, the extension clearly has the appearance of a bungalow. That's the existing dwelling, and then the rear access road, which does serve other dwellings, and that's the garage that's there at the moment, that one. As you can see, it's fairly discreet. The proposed one would be considerably higher than that. And that's just looking back at the dwelling. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ronnie. Mr. Rafferty, present? You wish to speak? Yes. Mrs. Rafferty, you wish to speak? Please come forward. Make yourself comfortable. Yeah, the chair there. Before you will see a microphone, and on the base there is a button towards the front edge. That is a toggle on and off button, and we do need you to use the microphone, otherwise your submission isn't captured by YouTube, and we need to have that full record, okay? Now, you have 5 minutes of speaking time. You don't have to use all those 5 minutes, but to assist you in your timing, we will show lights. 4 minutes of green light, 1 minute of an amber light. When we turn to red, I need to stop you at that point to ensure that everybody has the same speaking rights, okay? So, in your own time, if you'd like to address the committee, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lorraine Rafferty. I live at 102A Pol Hill Road. I am representing the 40 signatures on the petition. The front of my house faces the rear garden of 98 Pol Hill Road. My house is accessed by a private road which is approximately 2.5 metres wide, making access difficult at times. There are 3 properties in this private road, 100A, 102A and myself 104A. The house has been maintained and adopted by the owners of these 3 properties for over 20 years. This includes lighting, tarmacking, cutting back all vegetation, trees, bushes, etc. The cost of the tarmac alone was in excess of £12,000. So you can understand why we feel passionate who has the right of access. We have read the planning reports and agree with their decision to refuse planning for the new build. I would just like to add these few points. We all feel that a detached building of 44 square metres in the rear garden overlooking neighbours would be harmful to the character and appearance of the residential environment. Also, parking for 2 cars accessed by the private road, which I repeat is 2.5 metres wide, outside my bedroom window, is not necessary for an elderly relative in a granny annex. Adequate parking is available in the front of their property. A building of that size and magnitude will probably outlast an elderly relative's needs. What happens then? Is there a danger of it becoming a bed in a shed? And to quote paragraph 3 of Hillingdon Borough's RESPOC report, I quote, "The unauthorised conversion of outbuildings into separate units of residential accommodation, known as beds in sheds, show a total disregard to the planning laws. They tend to be built in the back gardens of residential properties and rented out to tenants. We hope it never comes to this." Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, are there any questions at all? Sorry, if I could ask you to just remain there for a second. No, it's okay. Because the committee members may wish to ask you some questions for clarification, okay? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I've just had a query about the existing garage, because we're told that there is an existing garage which it's proposed to enlarge and make into this sort of separate dwelling. How do they gain access to that garage?
There's never been access to that garage.
So is that a private access way?
Can I ask you to use the microphone? If you just no, it's okay.
Yeah. Do you and the other properties adjacent? That's your private land, is it? So no one has a right of access over that except yourself and your neighbours?
Yes, 3 properties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If I could ask you to now turn off the microphone. Thank you very much, and you may return to the seat. Thank you very much. Colleagues, sorry, before we do, I just need to ask, is the applicant or the agent present? You wish to speak? Please, sir, come forward. Again, if I can invite you to use the microphone. Speaking time, again, of 5 minutes. 4 minutes with a green light, 1 with an amber, and then red, I must draw you to a close, okay? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the owner of 98 Pol Hill Road, and the reason I want to extend the existing garage into an annex is because currently my parents live with me. I've been married for 5 years. Now my wife wants them to move out, so either I kick them out and they go to a separate property, or I build them a separate dwelling. I don't disagree with the fact that this will serve a separate dwelling, but this will be separate dwelling for my parents. And if you could, I'm sure you will have records that they have been living with me for a while. After a while now, my wife wants them to move out. So I thought that this would be the safest option, where I can take care of them as well if needed. Second point is the car parking. I don't know where it's coming from, but my lease clearly says that I've got an access to the garage, and the access was granted when the garage was actually built. I've spoken to the previous owners, and they've said sometime in 1976, 77 there was a court case which actually allowed me the access. It's also in my lease saying I've got a passageway to the access. That's why I was planning to get my car parking. I understand there's plenty of parking in front, but my dad is already 60. I don't want him to carry his groceries to the end if he can take the car. But that's not that's just a essential, nice to have, not must to have. So that I'm not disputing that. If committee thinks that car parking is an issue, I'm happy to remove the parking space from there. The other bit is the privacy. I think we are not facing anyone's garden. We are only facing the driveway. 102A's driveway will be right in front of us. So, and the height is going to be no more than the existing height of 102A. So we are not building a two-story. We are only building a single story. With the size, we already have a garage. We are just extending it no more than 50% of the existing dwelling. So these are my points. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Colleagues, any questions at all? Clarification? No, thank you. I invite you to turn off the microphone and return to your seats. Thank you. Can I just ask for clarity from the officer's perspective? Is the issue here there is no right of the applicant over the land to gain access to the parking, or is it such that the angle of the turn into the parking is so acute that it can't be done without then encroaching onto other land that's private?
Thank you, Chairman. The issue isn't one of whether he has a right of access. That's a private matter. He's saying that he has a right of access, and he has provided documentation to us which possibly shows that. So we cannot dispute that. If members of the public do wish to dispute it, then there are other avenues to explore that. The issue here is whether the parking spaces can be accessed, and as the applicant and the petitioner has said, the access road is 2.5 metres wide. To actually access the parking spaces, there needs to be a space of 6 metres in front of those spaces so that manoeuvring can be carried out in and out of those spaces. And at 2.5 metres wide, without going onto land which is not in the ownership of the applicant or over which he has a right of way, it cannot be possible to access those parking spaces.
Thank you for that clarification. Colleagues, I now open this up for discussion. Anybody wish to comment on this one? Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I mean, we are increasingly seeing applications of this nature and also having to deal with them in our casework. And I do have every sympathy with people who do want to care for their elderly relatives at home, or in this case where they want to have a separate building on their own land in their own garden. But we have these policies for a very good reason, which is that it's very much open to abuse by people who will say, I want this for my elderly parents, my elderly mother, etc. And then it becomes a bed in a shed, it's let out, there's very little control, and we find that whole families are living in very overcrowded, and very unsatisfactory conditions. Some years ago, we used to be able to allow what was then called granny annexes, I don't know what they're called now, on the basis of a personal permission for the life of that person. That seems to have... I don't want to put the legal officer on the spot. It was a long time ago. But it seems to me that possibly at some point that's going to re-emerge into planning considerations that we have to deal with under certain circumstances. I mean, I don't think that applies here because although there may be access to the property, it isn't located in quite the right place on this plot. It isn't the right height. Parking would need to be set further in. We don't know what that would do to amenity space. There are a whole other lot of considerations. So in terms of policy, I'm afraid it does breach a lot of planning policies, and it's not possible for me to vote for it. But I hope there will be considerations given in our planning policy team as to how we would deal with issues of personal permissions for granny annexes. Thank you.
Thank you. Point very well made regarding this increasing demand for it. It's something that I think we need to be taking up cross-party outside of this because it is coming forward. Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, like Councillor Duncan, I have every sympathy with the applicant who wishes to try and find a solution to a domestic problem. However, there are other things that we as a committee have to consider, and my understanding of an annex would mean that it is part of the main building. It is joined to the main building, and this is described as an annex, and it is at the bottom of the garden. So it is, in fact, definitely a freestanding building all on its own. Likewise, the parking is going to be a problem. We certainly can't talk about who owns the land. That is a private matter between various parties. But I, too, can't vote in favour of allowing this to go ahead due to the discrepancies in whether or not it would end up as a bed in a shed.
Thank you very much. Councillor Altman-Wilana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say the same things. I have great sympathy, but can't set the precedent on this situation and can't support the application.
Does anybody wish to then develop that theme? Councillor Yarra.
I'll move that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder, please?
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Alchemid-Wallana. And show of hands, please, on that one. That is unanimously refused, that application. Sir, I do encourage you to speak further with the planning department to see if there is a way forward that will require quite significant adjustment. Okay, thank you. Turn to agenda item 7. You understood the outcome of that one? Sorry, I do get criticised that we make an announcement and people don't understand what we've done. Thank you very much. You do. Thank you very much. Cheers. Good night. Agenda item 7. Navenet Center, Printing House Lane, Hayes. And there is a minor addendum item on this one, colleagues.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. If I can, first of all, draw members' attention to the addendum sheet. The applicant or the site is the Navenet Center, which is spelt incorrectly on the front sheet. And the application is not for a two-storey side extension. It is for a children's play area to the rear. So, with that, this is at a site which is in the Greenbelt. There are a number of issues which are all set out in the report. The main issue being whether A, this is a playing field, and B, whether there's a loss of playing fields. We did consult with Sport England. Originally they did object. Then they decided that we didn't actually need to consult them, but they still objected. But we've decided that whilst it may involve a small loss of a playing field, the playing field has not been used for a considerable amount of time, and it is a very small loss, and the area that's still left would still provide a considerable amount of playing pitches on the site. So for those reasons we are saying that the application is acceptable. Its impact on the Greenbelt is minimal, and it is a recreational use, so it is something that we would accept in principle in the Greenbelt. If I can just show you the plans. That is the site, and it is in the Greenbelt. The red outline just shows the access to it and the site of the actual play area, and that's a slightly larger version, and that's the details of the play area with the equipment that's being used set out at the bottom there. And these are just some of the photographs. That's the front. You won't be able to see the play area from the front, and the actual site is marked out in the red and white tape. So that's it there, and then that's the rest of the playing field as it is. So we are recommending it for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Colleagues, Councillor Dillon?
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I've never ever seen that playing field used since they've had it, and they've had it quite a long time, so I have no problem. At least it'll get some use out of it. Thanks, Rob.
You're moving on. Thank you.
That, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Show of hands, please, on this one. That one's agreed. Thank you. Moving swiftly on, number... Going beyond myself here. Hold on. Number 1A, Pol Hill Road, agenda item 8.
Thank you, Chairman. Very straightforward. This application is before you because it does have a history of enforcement. As you'll see in the planning history section, a breach condition notice was issued. This has been complied with. The actual extension complies fully with the council standards and size limits that are set out in the supplementary document on residential extensions. Therefore, we are recommending approval. There is no impact on the adjoining occupier. It is set well in from the boundary. Thank you, Chairman. If I can just show you the plans and the photographs, just to show you that there's no impact. It's cited there, and that's...
Thank you very much. Councillor Chandel?
Thank you, Chairman. It's only been brought to us because there's previous enforcement history. I've got no problems with it. I think we should move with the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much. Second, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Everybody show of hands on this one, please. Unanimous. Thank you. Item 9, number 60, Carfax Road.
Again, this one has come before you because there is enforcement history. There are a couple of enforcement notices served regarding the use of the outbuilding to the rear as a hairdressing salon. This has nothing to do with the actual extension to the building, which again fully complies with the council standards and has no impact on the adjoining properties. So again, recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan.
I don't have any issues with this. It complies with our policy. I move officers' recommendations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Yarrow.
Could I just raise a technical point on page 44, 3 lines up from the bottom? It says, with regards to concerns raised about party wall and encroachment onto number 24's land. I can't find a number 24 on any of the plans. Okay.
Amendment coming in, and that needs to be recorded.
As long as
Thank
that
you
is
very
altered
much.
to
Thank you
62,
for the
I don't have a
clarification.
problem, and I'll second it.
Seconded. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Show of hands, please. Do you have any issues?
No.
Show of hands. Everybody. Thank you. And we're now going to go on to agenda item 10. If I could just ask for Councillor Dillon to come back in. This is our section 106.
Good rest.
You weren't going to watch it, were you?
Okay, agenda item 10, section 106. Is that noted?
Yes,
Thank
noted.
you. Yeah, of course you may.
First of all, this format at the front is fine, but when it got to the next pages, on pages 78 and 79, I found that quite difficult, if we could change that format. But peering through it, I did find on page 78, refunds various. And I wondered if that's because we were out of time, or what was the reason for that? Do we know? And it's a bit difficult to see in this format, but it looks as if it was sort of 12,339. So, you know, a sum that could have been useful.
Can I?
Yep, certainly. If you can answer that one.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, with the font, if I can suggest that maybe we should do what we do with the plans and provide you with an A3 copy for the agenda.
Yes.
I'll suggest that to the or to committee services. In terms of the refunds, if I can ask the Section 106 monitoring officer to email you direct on that one, and we can then,
That would be
if members wish, we can email all members of the committee.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
It's also the format as well.
I was going to pick up that. It is the format, not just the size of the font.
Yeah.
The members are expressing a very clear preference for the format to be continuous throughout, using the original one, the one we're familiar with. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a written response to us all would be